Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sanjula Jain-Nagpal, Deputy Chief of Staff to Dr. Makary. Thank you all for joining this afternoon. Initiating the removal of the black box warning on hormone replacement therapy marks an incredible leap forward in women's health. And here to talk about this action and the evidence behind it is FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary, who has long been a champion of this issue and has written extensively on this topic, including in his most recent book, Blind Spots. And on behalf of the entire kind of women's health community and FDA staff, thank you, Dr. Marty Makary, for making this possible. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Great. Thanks so much, Sanjula, and thank you, everybody, for joining. Good afternoon. And we are discussing hormone replacement therapy in postmenopausal women. As you know, the FDA took action this week to remove black box warnings from estrogen products. These warnings were placed in 2003 following the Women's Health Initiative study and all of the media frenzy that ensued from that study. People have said that study was flawed, but I would actually say that study was not flawed. It gave us results based on the design, and the design is different than the type of study that we would design today, knowing what we know about the role of hormone replacement therapy for postmenopausal women. It was also misunderstood and misinterpreted, and even the authors have acknowledged that and tried to clarify some of those findings. Regardless, we are where we are today. In 2002, women flushed their estrogen pills down the toilet. Doctors called their patients and said, you must get off of these things. Women read the headlines in the media. As you know, the study was released in the media before it was released to the general public and published in JAMA. And in that interim time period, there was a lot of panic. And so the use of hormone replacement therapy plummeted, and the FDA jumped on the groupthink at the time and issued these stern black box warnings. Unfortunately, we've heard now countless stories of women who have been prescribed estrogen products, taken them home after they picked them up from the pharmacy, and chosen not to take them because of the fear of the black box warnings. We are not here to say that there are no adverse events of estrogen products, of hormone replacement therapy in postmenopausal women. We're not here to tell people to take hormone replacement therapy. We are not here to promote any products. What we would like to do as an FDA is respond to the wave of petition that has asked us to update the label based on the best available science at the time, at the current time. So we took action essentially responding to an initial petition submitted to us in 2016. Another petition was submitted in 2025. We consulted with our subject matter experts, some of whom are on this call and you will hear from, who work within the FDA. These are outstanding physician scientists who did a thorough review of the literature and were able to make recommendations on a label change. In deciding what goes to the black box warning, or what we now call the boxed warning, is typically reserved for the highest level warning that the FDA can issue. That the review of the literature accounted for what should rise to that level and what should simply be inserted in the package insert of the label. And so all of that was considered. We also convened external experts, listened to them, consulted with other experts who have strong views on this matter on both sides of the issue, and opened up our docket for a public comment period to solicit public input from all stakeholders involved, medical groups and non-medical groups alike, to weigh in on the topic. And the decision was made. And so the decision was made this week. As soon as we made the decision, we chose to let the public know immediately. The label change will go through its normal process where companies will be invited to make that change. Generally speaking, companies, when offered to remove a black box warning, will do so very promptly. And so that's where we are in the process. As you know, the WHI study was the largest, most expensive study ever in the history of medicine at the time that it was conducted. It resulted in findings that, in my opinion, have been misinterpreted. And as a result, 50 million plus women have been denied the potential benefits of hormone replacement therapy when started within a number of years of the onset of menopause. You may know the literature on this topic, and while there are studies that are mixed, there appears to be a profound set of long-term health benefits. These long-term health benefits include the reduction of cognitive decline, which is not just noted in the time immediately after menopause, but also long-term. And this has been described in several studies. There has also been a recent 2023 review article in the journal Circulation that reviewed 19 randomized controlled trials and other studies and concluded that there was an approximate 30% reduction in all-cause mortality and a 48% reduction in heart attack death. I think we need to make sure we don't lose sight of the forest from the trees. Heart attacks are the #1 cause of death in women. And we spend a tremendous amount of energy in the public health community encouraging statins for individuals with hypercholesterolemia. Statins have a relative risk reduction of roughly up to 35%. In this analysis, in this cardiology journal, the heart attack death risk reduction was approximately 48%. By comparison to 35%, that is a profound number. And while other studies have suggested it may range between 25 to 50%, everybody in this field who has described this cardioprotective finding emphasizes the importance of starting hormone replacement therapy within roughly 10 years of the onset of menopause, or generally before the age of 60. Those are common practice patterns out there. As an FDA, we are not weighing in on those practice patterns, but it does appear to be a consensus among the researchers that have noted a long-term cardioprotective effect, a cardiovascular benefit that does appear to invert after a roughly a 10-year period after the onset of menopause, or around age 60 as the time of initiation of hormone replacement therapy in postmenopausal women. By comparison, we have a massive public health effort to teach CPR. Now consider that the 2023 Circulation Review described a 48% reduction in heart attack death risk. CPR may have perhaps a 10% death risk reduction, and yet this is a massive public health campaign to teach everybody in the world CPR. That is important. That's an important public health campaign, and we need to do it and keep doing it. But we cannot ignore other medical interventions that may have a dramatic impact on fighting heart disease in women. Unfortunately, issues of women's health have not received the attention they deserve. In this administration, we have made a concerted effort to elevate issues of women's health in medicine to give them the attention they deserve. That includes our announcement on IVF recently and other announcements. Let's not forget also that bone health is an important part of overall health. When we talk about prevention, there probably is no intervention in the modern era medically that can improve the health outcomes of a population of women more than hormone replacement therapy, arguably with few exceptions, such as the advent of antibiotics or vaccines. A 50 to 60% lower risk of future bone fractures. If a woman gets into a car accident or falls at the age of 75 or 85, they are half as likely to have a bone fracture. That means they may be half as likely to need surgery, like a hip fracture. So these are important long-term health benefits that have been overlooked because hormone replacement therapy in postmenopausal women has often been seen and taught in schools as simply a treatment for the alleviation of symptoms of menopause. That is, the hot flashes, night sweats, weight gain, mood swings, difficulty sleeping, pain with sexual activity, and potentially dozens of other symptoms. Of course, women experience menopause differently. I was taught in medical school that really in a sort of downplaying of menopause, that some women experience menopause, but it's usually just a couple years and the symptoms are mild. Well, we now know that is not true. We now know that massively underrecognized and underappreciated the role of menopause in women's health. We now know that roughly 80% of women experience symptoms, and for many women, those symptoms are severe, and the average duration is roughly 8 years or more. So I do believe that with some notable exceptions, there may be no other medication that can improve the health outcomes of women on a population level more than hormone replacement therapy. And that is in part combined with our review of the literature, why we took action to remove the black box warning to address the fear that is still out there. All medications have side effects, and that is a fact of life. We cannot simply discount the potential benefits of a medication because of an overplayed side effect. Now, those side effects are particularly important when considering the contraindications that physicians have used. An active breast cancer, or for some physicians, they consider prior breast cancer or a prior estrogen, receptor positive breast cancer as or a receptor positive cancer of any type that has an estrogen receptor. Some physicians consider a history of that to be a contraindication. That's up to a physician and their patient to make that decision. Obviously, underlying risks of blood clots have been considered to be a contraindication. So not every woman should be starting hormone replacement therapy. But as an FDA, we want doctors, other clinicians, and patients to have good information on this topic. So I'd now like to take a moment to thank the amazing physicians and FDA experts. Dr. Christine Nguyen Dr. Christine Nguyen, who has continued to fight for the evidence here, is on the line. And now I'd like to turn the call over to her, who will give us more details about the actions the FDA took earlier this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Makary, for that comprehensive overview of the role of hormone therapy in women's health. This is truly an important, very important action we've taken as of Monday. I'm Christine Nguyen. I am the Deputy Director for the office that oversees the division that regulates hormone therapy. And you'll hear from my colleague, Dr. Christina Chang, who is the division director of that division. We both have reviewed the data that led to these recommendations, so we know the information intimately, and we're both board certified in obstetrics and gynecology. So this is very near and dear to us. What I'd like to add to Dr. Makary's comments, first of all, I want to thank you for joining us on this call today. We value your collaboration, as many of you provide guidance to and engage with healthcare providers who directly care for women in their menopausal years. In the next several moments, I'm hoping that we'll be able to clarify the specifics of our action regarding the box warnings, and then we'll address your important questions. Just to kind of summarize what we did that led us to these recommendations, as Dr. Makary had provided an overview on the history of the box warning since the early 2000s to the most recent public meeting in July of this year. We took really into consideration probably a good decade worth of public input regarding their concerns about the box warnings, really dissuading women who may need these medications from either having or receive a prescription for them, or even after receiving a prescription, choosing not to use them. We review the broad public input from the public meeting in July. And during the same time, we assess the relevant literature since the initial publications of the WHI trials as long-term follow-up data from these clinical trials and also observational data from the large databases have been published within the past years for us to review. We conducted our own review of the drug utilization data to inform us of the landscape of the use of prescription hormone therapy in the various age groups. And these analyses indicate, number one, that there was definitely consistent input from the public regarding the adverse impact of the box warnings, likely from the oversimplified one-size-fits-all interpretation of risks. Our drug utilization data suggested there is underutilization among women likely to benefit from HRT. And thirdly, when initiated early in menopause, when the vasomotor symptoms or other bothersome symptoms are most prominent, and the baseline health risks are lower than in the older ages, the benefit risk balance of hormone therapy is such that the box warnings are no longer warranted. We took a hard look at the topical vaginal estrogen products and recognized that while the higher doses of some of these vaginal products may have similar estrogen exposure as the lowest doses of systemic therapy, on average, the average exposure with these vaginal products are generally a bit lower than that for systemic products. So there's definitely uncertainty regarding applying the risk of systemic therapy to these local vaginal products. And as such, we are prioritizing the risks more specific to the local vaginal formulation. So in summary, we recognize that the menopausal conditions can significantly adversely impact women's quality of life and their health. We have approved numerous safe and effective hormone therapies. And despite these available treatment options, HRT use has declined substantially since early 2000. In response to evolving evidence and stakeholder engagement, we are proposing updates to the hormone therapy labeling to better contextualize risks for specific safety outcomes, given the therapy's established benefits in the intended population to support more precise, individualized care. So with that, I'll now walk us through the labeling revisions we are requesting from the sponsor. So if I may have the next slide, please. So these proposed changes apply to all hormone products. That includes both systemic and the local vaginal products. Regarding the box warning, asking for the removal of the language related to cardiovascular diseases, breast cancer, and probable dementia. We're also asking to remove the language related to endometrial cancer, except for the labels for the systemic estrogen alone drugs. And lastly, we are requesting the removal of the recommendation to use the lowest effective dose for the shortest amount of time. Now, within the label itself, we are recommending the removal of the probable dementia warning. Next slide, please. These are additional changes that we are requesting. The first for systemic products. So this is for systemic products to add the consideration of starting hormone therapy for moderate to severe PMS in women less than 60 years of age or less than 10 years since menopause. To add data from the Women's Health Initiative in women ages 50 to 59 years old, as is better reflected the age group in which women would be initiating hormone therapy. As I mentioned, we will retain in the box warning the risk of endometrial cancer with unopposed estrogen in women with the uterus. And as you know, this box warning has been in place for over 2.5 decades. This is not the result from the WHI trials. And lastly, we are retaining information about the cardiovascular diseases and breast cancer warnings in the main body of the label. Next slide, please. And lastly, for the local vaginal estrogen products, we have streamlined and condense the safety information and prioritize the information most relevant to the local vaginal formulation. What we heard consistently, and it was a clear line, was to make the drug label for the local vaginal estrogen products different than the systemic products, and we have done so based on the evidence we reviewed. And now I'd like to turn the call over to Dayle, who will be moderating today's question and answer portion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those engaging presentations. I'm Dayle Cristinzio. I'm the Director of the Public Engagement Staff at FDA, and I'll be moderating the conversation for the rest of our call. Just as a reminder, if you have a question for one of our FDA principals, please enter your question into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And please also identify your name and affiliation with your question so that we may know who is asking it. We will try to get through as many as we can, and I will try and summarize them if we get similar questions into one. So the first question I have from previous chat box chatter is, why is FDA taking this action now? What has changed, and if this action is warranted, why wasn't it done sooner?
Great. Well, it's a great question. I think I've been in office for about 7 months now, and so we are moving quickly to get things done that we think are important topics in healthcare that have not been getting the attention they deserve, that deserve better attention, topics we're not talking about that we should be talking about. So for 35 years at the FDA, they talked about removing one artificial food dye from the food supply. Within a couple months of coming into office, we took action to remove all 9 artificial petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply. The FDA drug rejection letters have been secret and never made public in the past. For 20 years, they've been talking about making those letters public. Within a matter of weeks, we took action, and those letters are now public today uniformly, all drug rejection letters, so the public can see the results. We've taken action in so many areas to try to get things done swiftly. It's hard to work in government. There has been a group of doctors waving the flag in the air saying, hey, you need to take a look at this black box warning. The totality of evidence does not justify it. They have reached out. They've communicated to the FDA. We hear them, and we have heard from the patient community that of women that has said, this is continuing a fear machine where there's already a lot of misunderstanding. So we wanted to move swiftly. We wanted to get the information right, and that's why, while we could have done this in a matter of days, we took our time, and we had Dr. Nguyen and other physician colleagues of hers who are career scientists at the FDA to do a proper review of the literature. We had the public comment period. We always believe in getting input on ideas that we may have. I think one general principle, if I can take a step back for a minute, is that we all have our biases. I have a bias as a public health researcher with a clinical background in surgical oncology. A patient is going to bring their perspective. Another colleague in a different specialty is going to bring their perspective. A cardiologist is going to bring their perspective. Somebody who treats the complications of medications, like blood clots, is going to have their perspective. And these biases are not unhealthy. What's unhealthy is not recognizing our biases. We all bring a vantage point to any issue in medicine. And I think what's important is that we simply recognize the biases that we bring to a topic. So for that reason, we held a number of conversations and opened up a wide public comment period to hear from many, many, many different perspectives on this very topic. We have reconsidered the 2 petitions that we've received, but we tried to act both swiftly and promptly, and yet judiciously, so that we follow the proper process at the FDA, which is to have our scientists in this division, namely Dr. Nguyen and her team, do a comprehensive literature search to make recommendations independently to the commissioner at the FDA on how they believe the label change should take place. So that's the genesis of where we are today. I am very pleased to see a tremendous reception to this announcement 2 days ago. I think it's the most popular thing that has happened in the medical community where there's broad consensus. And so I think it's a good thing that women feel that now they can talk about all the options in the nuanced way that this topic deserves. There's no blanket one-size-fits-all recommendation for hormone replacement therapy, but hopefully now there'll be more productive, healthy conversations between women and their physicians.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Makary. The next question I have is, what is the timing for the requested labeling changes? Does industry have to comply since this is a request?
I cannot imagine or think of a time in FDA history that a manufacturer or a sponsor has not wanted a black box warning removed from a product they are selling on the market. So we don't expect and have not heard of any companies not wanting to follow our suggestions here. But the normal process takes a matter of months. If you think about it, there is in inventory currently in pharmacies and all across America, estrogen products that are in stock with the label, and we're not going to take them out of stock. We're not going to recommend that. It's going to take time for the inventory to turn over, and that begins with the companies accepting the label changes and then reprinting the label.
Perfect. Okay, another question that we got from Zoom is a huge thanks to all the FDA, all physicians who testified, and especially Dr. Rubin and Dr. Kasperson for making this change to improve the health of women across the world. How can associations like the American Urological Association advance the paradigm shift that we will need to occur to promote trust among physicians to prescribe HRT and teach them how to order it as well as patients so they feel comfortable taking HRT?
That's a great question. And the American Urological Association and ACOG and so many other groups, North American Menopause Society, have already done a tremendous amount of work in trying to educate people on the latest state-of-the-art understanding of the evidence in this field. And I think that's terrific work, and it should be commended. I think we need to keep the conversation alive. We have an opportunity now where many women in America over the last 2 days have now heard about this, and there are renewed conversations. There is renewed interest. And I think we need to build on that with more conversations. The societies are in a unique position to create core competencies for residencies. We'd like to see the same in medical schools so that menopause is not glossed over as a topic that gets very little attention. Menopause generates symptoms that affect the health of women, and yet we hardly ever talk about it in the field of medicine. Now, in OB and urology and some specialties in medicine, they have been on the forefront of this and have been sort of ahead of the pack on this, probably because of their knowledge and comfort of women's hormones in other settings. But I think we need to continue the education campaign as best we can within the House of Medicine. That's my opinion. Perhaps I'll turn it over to Dr. Christine Nguyen to see if she has any other thoughts on this. I think it is a good question. We all want the same thing. And one of the beautiful things about this topic, in an age of sort of a toxic polarization that is at times partisan, but it's a function in part of the echo chambers of social media and the polarization of cable news and affirming news, I think there are things that we can all agree on, and this is one topic when it comes to the health of our nation's children, when it comes to the food supply, when it comes to talking about new frontiers in medicine, such as the microbiome. And this is one of those topics, what's in the best interest of women and what is the best evidence-based recommendation to improve the short-term and long-term health outcomes of women. This has been a uniting topic, and I hope it continues to be that way.
Thank you, Dr. Makary. This is Nguyen. I definitely agree with everything you've stated. I think there are several pillars of change, and I like to think that the FDA is doing our best to really lead that charge by having these labeling revisions. Definitely the professional societies, I think, are key in guiding clinicians how to counsel patients, what products to use, how to monitor patients. And I would also emphasize that, you know, there are approved products and there are unapproved products. And obviously there are great differences between those two categories as far as ensuring that the patients receive a product that we can stand behind. So I'm really hoping with the labeling revisions that there will be trust in the products that FDA have reviewed carefully, making sure that the quality is safe and contains what's supposed to contain. I think the second pillar is really education in form of residency in CME. And just general educational materials for patients that's put out by ACOG and AUA. And also, I like to acknowledge the role of FDA's Office of Women's Health, who really, they are the office that is the public interface for us, and working with them to generate educational materials for prescribers and for patients alike.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Nguyen. And we know that there are a number of those professional societies that are represented on today's call. So we're hoping that you are part of that education process going forward. Our next question is from Zoom. We have a physician in the UK who asked, I would like to express my huge gratitude for this work. The risks to health and also to symptoms of not being prescribed HRT are so large, they cannot be ignored. But I am keen to know if you think that other countries will change inaccurate warnings.
Frequently we do see other health agencies around the world look to the U.S. FDA to see what we are doing. So I think we will use our leadership status in the globe to try to let people know what we're thinking. I think other countries, including the European Medicine Agency, has had very healthy conversations with us, including the head of the EMA, who I've had conversations with on this very topic. And so we're going to do everything we can to raise awareness. Sometimes the FDA, although we do not make direct health recommendations, we can raise awareness around certain topics. And in this case, we are trying to raise awareness around an important issue of women's health that, as you heard me say, has not gotten the attention it deserves. So I hope we can see more funding in this area, more research, more collaboration, more core competencies and educational programs, and a healthier discussion than we've had in the past. When we had 3 news networks 50 years ago and a couple magazines and newspapers, there were not a lot of channels for a healthy discussion around certain topics. And now you are actually seeing women on social media ask questions and then or sharing their experience, and then those women audiences to those posts are then going to their physicians and asking questions. That's a healthy conversation. That, in my opinion, that is how we move the ball forward. So the opportunity here, I think, is to continue this conversation. We are regulators at the FDA, and while I'm a physician, we are moving on to other topics, and we hope that this particular issue continues to have a robust conversation in perpetuity.
Thank you for that. The next question is also from Zoom. Since the announcement, there have been people saying that the data around use of MHT to prevent dementia and heart varied and not definitive. Will your office be addressing this? And will there be plans for ongoing research to measure the impact of MHT use on these conditions and more?
So the cardiovascular complications appear to be in a holistic review of the literature to be a function of the age of initiation. And there are different theories as to why. Dr. Phil Sorrell from Yale has described how a woman's blood vessels and cardiovascular health in the absence of estrogen will allow for a more rapid acceleration of narrowing and hardening of the vessels. That is, the estradiol can convert, it can increase the levels of nitric oxide, which can help keep the blood vessel wall soft and healthier over time. But without estrogen over a period of time, presumably roughly 10 years has been a rule of thumb, that narrowing can then progress in a way that's irreversible. And that narrowing, coupled with the ever so slight increased risk of thromboembolic events with estrogen, can magnify the risk of thromboembolic events. And so that's why the age of initiation appears to be the most critical, nuanced part of the practice patterns that physicians have adopted in discussing this topic with individuals. Now, there are women who have said, and I've heard these voices even recently, I'm 75 years old, I never started hormone replacement therapy, and I feel that, they feel upset that they were never given this option when they went through menopause. And, maybe they have a right to be angry, but the best practice patterns right now among many practicing physicians is to not initiate hormone replacement therapy more than 10 years after the onset of menopause. Now, I have heard from physicians, including one who was on our expert panel, who has said they do engage in a type of microdosing in women who are more than 10 years after the onset of menopause in initiating HRT. There are different practice patterns out there. We're not here to recommend any, but this is a discussion which I think is best held in the context of recognizing the important nuance of the age of initiation of HRT being directly proportional to the cardiovascular complication rate. And as you know, the average age of women in the Women's Health Initiative was 63, which is considered to be outside of the window of initiation of HRT, which enables the continuous levels of estrogen and presumably nitric oxide to enable a good cardiovascular health and portend the long-term cardiac benefits that have been observed. And if you go back to the 1930s, you will see historically that this topic first got attention when researchers at the Mayo Clinic had observed that young women who had their ovaries removed in their 20s went on to have cardiovascular disease in their 30s and 40s, suggesting a profound cardioprotective effect of estrogen production or estrogen in a woman's body. And so all of these subsequent studies have matured since that time, but we have learned that the age of initiation is that key nuanced piece of it. Now, we could have other learnings in the future with other research, but based on the available evidence, it does appear that there are profound cardioprotective benefits to estrogen administered in that nuanced way.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Makary. I want to be cognizant of time, and it's toward the end of our time today, and just want to offer up any closing remarks that you may have before we end today's call.
Well, I know we have a lot of people on the call and people on the call who are in a unique position to continue this conversation. In my mind, the more ideas, the better, and the more of a robust discussion on this topic, the better. And the discussion itself is a very healthy exercise in the way that we advance the field of medicine. So I'll say thank you. I'll turn it over to Dr. Nguyen to see if she has anything to add, but I want to say thank you to everybody who has been passionate about this topic and brings their expertise, their wisdom, their clinical pearls from being in practice, their understanding of the literature to this discussion. I think it's a very healthy discussion, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Makary, for addressing our multiple questions. This is Christine Nguyen. Again, I really appreciate your joining us on the call today. There are excellent questions asked that we didn't get to. I suspect that once the labeling revisions are finalized, that some of your questions will be answered as you will be able to see the content of what we proposed. We're unable to share them at this point because we're still in negotiations with the sponsors, but we certainly have addressed a lot of the concerns you brought up. I also like to thank my team on the call today. It did take a village at the FDA to make this happen. We have experts who are OB/GYN, who are, career scientists. We have experts in epidemiology. We have our colleagues from the Office of Women's Health, and certainly all the support that we have from the Office of Commissioner and Dr. Makary to make all of this happen. So again, I really appreciate your time and hope that this was helpful. And we really rely on your collaboration to move all the messaging out there and forward.
Thank you again for joining us today. This call has been recorded and we will be posting it on our website. And so stay tuned for recording and for more information. Thank you again so much.